YouTube, it's Maya here. Welcome back to my channel, and for this week's video, guys, I am wearing a Pac-Man shirt to represent the good old days of my life. That is right, my childhood. Today, we're going to be talking about different things I used to believe as a child. Now, I obviously don't believe these things anymore, but as a kid who was very naive, knew very little about the world, and had an extensive imagination, a lot of these things were things I really thought were true. Some of them are kind of common, so if you guys can relate to any of these, then comment down below which ones. But if you've never been to my channel before, I'm MayaHennessey, and if you like what you're seeing, then please subscribe to my channel and click that little notifications bell, because now YouTube doesn't actually show all the videos of the people you are subscribed to anymore in your subscription box. You actually have to hit the little bell, so make sure you've done it, that way you'll always get notifications whenever I make new videos. Well, let's not dawdle on anymore and get straight into the video. So the first thing I used to think as a child is actually a pretty common thing, and I think a lot of children believe this when they're young. I used to believe that back in the 1900s, everything actually was black and white. My family has a lot of photos around our house, and most of them are in black and white, so I remember seeing them as a child, but I just didn't connect the two until I went to dance one day and we were watching an old-timey dance video. I don't exactly remember which video it was. I feel like it was Singing in the Rain, but I don't think that's in black and white, even though that would make sense. I don't know, but it was an old-timey dance video, and I just remember that video was in black and white, and so even though I had seen all these pictures in black and white, to see a video it confirmed it. I just automatically thought from then on that everything was in black and white, and I really thought people couldn't be able to distinguish colors back then. I don't exactly remember how my brain thought that color became to be, and I'm not really sure. I don't know how the human population could have gone from black and white to color suddenly. I don't think my brain ever made up a explanation on why that happened. But either way, I used to think everything was in black and white. And I think the day that I learned that this was false was when I was talking to my dad, and we were talking about things that he did as a kid, and he was a model. So he was telling me a story about one time his sister and his mom and him were out shopping, and they were buying a shirt for a model gig. And I just remember asking him, oh, how did you know what color shirt you were picking out? My dad was really confused and asked me what I meant, and I just told him, wasn't everything in black and white? I mean, how could you actually know what color shirt you were picking out if you couldn't see the color? And my dad kind of just looked at me and went, that's not right. So now I obviously know that everything wasn't in black and white, it was just the cameras taking those pictures and videos back in those days. The second thing I used to believe as a child was actually pretty weird, and I don't even know how to explain it. Basically, I used to think that all the continents of the world were just sitting flat on top of the ocean. And I used to think that if you went to the beach, you could dig yourself and then go underneath the continents. I legit have no idea when I started thinking this. I believe it was because, remember in kindergarten where they'd have those puzzles where you can connect the continents to the world? Well, I thought that the whole world was like a puzzle piece, and the little continents were just connecting to the ocean. The puzzle was in real life, so you could potentially go underneath the continents in the water. I don't remember when I stopped thinking this, but I think as time went on, I learned that the continents are land, and they're not just on top of the ocean. You can't just go underneath them. They're actually it's a core, it's the earth, it's not some puzzle. So obviously that's not true, but I did believe that when I was little. The next thing I used to believe, and I totally blame the movie Cars for this, I used to believe that cars could talk. Whenever we would pass a car on the highway or an intersection or whatever, I used to think the cars would have a conversation with one another. That way the other car knew what our car was going to do. I didn't really grasp the understanding that it was actually humans controlling the car. I just thought they had their own conversations. I used to think the headlights were their eyes. Yeah. And I know for sure that I believe this because I have one very distinct memory of when my family and I were out to dinner. We were at a Chinese restaurant and I was looking outside the window and I saw that my mom and dad's car were parked next to each other, and I legit imagined them having their own conversation about how we were going to get home and what they were going to do when they went into the garage that night. It was like a legit conversation. I feel like somebody in the comments is gonna be like, oh my gosh, this girl is hallucinating, but no, legit. I really thought these cars were having like a full-on conversation. Now, the next thing I used to believe as a child is actually really strange, and I don't know how I started believing this. I think I had a dream about it because I dreamt about something like this happening, and then from there on I just started believing it because I dreamed it. And now that I'm going to say the dream out loud, it's probably going to sound really weird, but I used to believe that little tiny elves worked in the stoplights. Like the stoplights that have the red light, the yellow light, and the green light that tells cars to go and stop at intersections. Yeah, I used to believe that tiny little elves worked in there, and they were the ones switching the lights to tell the cars what to do. To get out of my neighborhood and go downtown, we have to go up this really long street, and then at the end of the street there's an intersection with a stoplight. And I remember that's exactly where I had this dream or this vision or this imagination of little tiny elves working in that stoplight. Kind of like, have you ever seen that episode of SpongeBob where they like go into his mind and there's like a million SpongeBobs working in like a little office inside his brain?
Got an order from the boss. Dump everything that isn't about fine dining. Everything.
Yeah, I used to believe that the elves' workhouse was exactly like that, only in a stoplight. And they would have the job 24/7, just turning the lights from red to yellow to green. Yeah, this one was a weird one. I don't remember when I stopped believing this, but now I know that the stoplights are from electricity and not from tiny elves. This one kind of goes hand in hand with the cars talking, but I used to believe that toys could talk behind our back. Toy Story had a big impact on my life, and after that I really did think that my stuffed animal bear, some of my little Pet Shop toys, some of my Barbies, they would legit come to life after I left the room and just kind of have a party. So the next thing I used to believe as a child was, I used to believe the moon followed you around wherever you went. I actually looked this one up because I kind of wanted to know why it looks like the moon is always following you, and it says on Google, the moon appears to follow you because it is so far away. When the car moves 100 feet forward, the relative angle between the direction of motion and the car is essentially the same. This means the moon appears in basically the same angular position with the same angular size. So no matter where you go, it'll always look like the moon is the same size and in the same angle of your body. And I definitely remember like sitting in my car seat as like a little 5-year-old or little 4-year-old in the car, and I would look at my window at night and I would see the moon and it would follow me, and I felt like I wasn't alone. Also, side tangent, I really want to know this. A lot of people say that the moon has a face. And I kind of think I see that from like the craters and stuff that's hit it. Whenever I look at the moon, I always think it has a face like this. Like a really surprised look. Like that's what I think the moon looks like. And a lot of my friends also see a face in the moon, but they don't see a surprised face. They see a sad face or a happy face. So if you see a face in the moon, comment down below what kind of expression it is, because I really want to know why everyone thinks the moon is like a different expression. The next thing I used to believe as a child was that the voice inside your head was actually a mini version of you talking to yourself. It's very debatable, at least in my opinion, what the heck that voice in your head is. A lot of people say it's your conscience and stuff like that. I definitely hear a voice in my head all the time. I talk to myself a lot in my head, and I definitely used to think that there was a little Maya in there telling me how my life is going or what I need to do or what's wrong and stuff like that. I definitely don't know exactly where that voice is coming from, but I do know that it's not a little me inside my head. That would really be like the whole SpongeBob episode with all the little SpongeBobs in his head. Woo! Okay, and finally finally, the last thing I used to believe as a child is I used to believe the smoke that comes out of factories were the things that made clouds. I think this is also kind of a very common one because the smoke that comes out of factories really does look like clouds, and since it kind of goes up into the sky and then kind of like disappears almost, it really does look like the factories are making the clouds. But that's not true. Clouds are actually water vapor, and all of those factories are just producing air pollution. Well guys, that was my video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give this video a big thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, click right over there to see my last video, and if you want to see behind the scenes or just more of me, then please check out my social media links down in the description box below. And always remember guys, when you're in the spotlight, strut your stuff, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!